Welcome to Mike's Motorworx, and I got Project Fast Fish behind me, but that's not the focus of today's episode. In fact, we're going to talk about a tool that I use a lot that recently, well, took a nosedive and is done and out for the count. Today, it's all about the grind. We're going to talk a little bit about grinders, or at least my knowledge thereof. Check it out. So this was Old Faithful for a little bit, and I say old because, well, it's still relatively new as far as grinders are concerned. As you guys know and have probably experienced, if you're using something long term, not professionally, but you put some heavy use on it, they just don't make things like they used to. And while some of you are probably watching this going, oh, I know a brand, it's so-and-so. I know a brand, it's so-and-so. That's not what this is about, right? We're just simply talking about the grinders themselves, all righty? Now, this one is a Chicago Electric. It was just something that probably most of you all do, where they go out to the Harbor Freight or the cheapest place they can go to find a tool, right? They buy that tool and they use it, stick it on their shelves, and boom, it's done, right? And they pull it out every once in a while. And while some tools are great for that, okay, other ones tend to, well, yield under pressure, right? And that's what happened here. And when I bought this thing, I paid a little bit more for it, not because it was, well, a name brand, because hello, it's Chicago Electric, right? The same thing can be pretty much made anywhere and put any label on it, right? In fact, that's what a lot of the Asian markets do when people selling the Asian tools do. There's nothing wrong with the Asian tools. That's not the point of this, right? But this just happens to be a Chicago Electric. You could probably find the same thing at, well, Northern Tool, go down to Tractor Supply, find something, or find something equivalent at your local hardware store, True Value, Lowe's, Home Depot, so on and so forth, right? So this guy, the reason I picked him up was two reasons. One, it was small form factor. I knew that when I was going to be grinding on something, especially Project Fast Fish back there, I needed a place where I could really get into something. That's one of the reasons why I didn't buy a battery powered one, right? I'll talk about that in a few moments, okay? And then what I really liked about this guy was the paddle trigger. If you ever use the grinder long term, you'll find that there are some, well, getting your tool running, there's good ones and there's bad ones to trigger the on and off, and we'll talk more about that in detail here in a few minutes, right? So those were the pretty much buying reasons why I got this guy. Now, as far as amperage, okay, this grinder spins at 10,000 RPMs. And then the amperage is not rated on there. I'm not seeing it, but it is a 4.5-inch angle grinder. Let's see, 126 amps, so it's a 6 amp grinder. All right, so that's probably another reason why I got it, because it was higher than, let's say, the 4.5 or the other ones that are out there. So boom, there you go. And I've used this for a lot of things. I put the wire brush on there, used it. I put the big old 4.5-inch cutting disc, cut a lot of the sheet metal off Project Fast Fish with it. I put the standard stone grinder on there. I put the flap disc grinder on there. I have an attachment with the aluminum oxide. So I use this for a lot, especially on the project. It is a very valuable tool. All right. So let's take a look at some of the other options that are out there, and then I'll show you what I decided to go with. Here we have my little brother. This is John's little Chicago Electric power tool. This one is a much cheaper version than the one I got. They were actually on the shelf at the same time, and he bought his right around the same time I bought mine, right? As you can see, they're clearly different manufacturers for this one compared to the other one, although they're still slapped with the Chicago Electric brand, alrighty? But one of the things about this one, and being the lesser expensive of the models, is you'll see that it has the trigger here to turn it on. And while it will rest staying in place, I have found that as I'm using it, and there are a lot of vibrations here, all right, the trigger tends to pop off, all righty? And yes, these do come with guards. He has chosen to take the guard off of his, and of course they all have the position handle on there. All right, will this get you by? Absolutely. All right, now as far as the rating, this one spins at 1100 RPMs, and this is a 5 amp. All right, so we have a 5 amp model here, and then we had a 6 amp model with my other one. Okay, now again, My biggest complaint about this guy, again, we do have the brush guard, we just don't have it on here, is the trigger mechanism. And I didn't really care much for the trigger mechanism. What I did like about this guy is its small platform, all right? Its overall platform is very, very small, so I can get it into tiny, small spaces, which is great, which is exactly what you want your grinder to do if you're working on a vehicle. All right, so you can maneuver it around and get it into tight places and corners. Fantastic, alrighty. But overall, if I were to get another one, you know, when I considered replacing this other guy over here, and we'll talk about this one in more detail in just a minute, I decided, yeah, I'm not gonna go with the cheap throwaway. I'm gonna get something that lasts a little bit longer. All right, so here we go. Let me put this to the side. Now, this guy, again, I have it in my hand simply because I wanted to talk more about this trigger mechanism down here, all right? Now, you saw the one trigger mechanism on the side that I said tends to pop off. Now, if you're using a dewalt and it's never done that to you before, great, that's awesome, okay? Leave a note about it. I am a dewalt, it's never popped off on me. Fantastic, all right? But what I like is the little trigger mechanism with the paddle switch down here. Now you'll see that this is just an on and off, right? So basically for safety, you flip this guy back and then you press down here. And as soon as you press down, it makes contact, it turns the grinder on, right? Obviously mine's not gonna turn on because I decided to cut the cord because hey, little cords are valuable, all right? Anywho, going forward here, right? There is another kind of trigger that you can get that's kind of like a trigger that you would find that's on a drill, okay? Where you have to squeeze and hold that trigger, all right? And I considered getting another grinder that had that with it. And I was like, you know what? I really like this flappy wheel, or not the flappy wheel, I like this kind of flap style trigger because it's really, really easy to hold in the hands. You got good control of it. And let's be honest, when you're using your grinder, you're holding it, right, in such a manner that you'll always have access to that trigger, right? You're holding it and you're moving it around and it's really easy to hold on to and it's just natural with the grip itself as you are working your grinder. So it made complete sense. Now, most of these grinders, or both of those that I've shown you so far, right, have the little bit on the end here where you can attach your different attachments, whether they are, you know, wire discs or wire brush wheels, or whether these little adapters that you would use to kind of put things on there, right? You just simply put the adapter wheel on there, because these arbors are kind of small. Right now, if I were to put this flap wheel arbor or disc on there, you can kind of see it's not sitting where it needs to sit at. That's definitely not the place where it needs to be. So you definitely need to use these little attachments. And the grinders that you buy at the store should come with the attachments, right? So you just use your attachments, put them on. And there you go. Now what I like to do is when it's unplugged, of course, to tighten it up, you can use a little tool. The tool looks like this, okay? Now, this simply goes, as you can see, into the little spots there and allows you to tighten that and around, okay? Again, I'm not getting this precise because this is for demo purposes, but you get the idea, all right? But of course, my little trick is just simply holding the lock up at the top and then just turning it until you get it good and snug, and that should be good for most cases. Now, if you're using something like a brush that has the spin-on nut on the end of it, then you definitely want to take it a step further, use that lock, and maybe use a wrench to make sure that thing stays tight, because that thing will fly off on you. And if it gets in your clothes, oh my, will it sting you, okay? So let's talk about what I decided to purchase. This is a Craftsman model CMEG200. That's CMEG200. You can pick these up at Amazon, and I'll leave a link for you down below. And of course, I'm not sponsored by Craftsman, but I do get a little kickback from Amazon every time somebody buys one of these. So if you choose to buy one, awesome, okay? Now, this particular model has a 4.5 inch small angle grinder. Okay, we know what that is. We've been talking about that this whole time, 4.5 inch small angle grinders. And of course, it has a 7.5 amp motor on there, which is really my buying decision. Some other things that it has is, of course, it has the position side handle. I showed you that earlier on the other grinder. And of course, this has the paddle trigger switch, which I like so much. I looked at a couple of different ones, and some had the drill style or the trigger style, trigger, and I didn't really care much for those. I definitely wanted to get something with the paddle switch, and I definitely wanted to avoid anything with the side switch because it kept on kicking off on me. Additionally, I am a big fan of Craftsman and Craftsman products. I used to work at Sears when I was younger and sold in their tool department. I've always loved Craftsman tools. It's what my grandfather used, and Pop has quite a few Craftsman tools, etc. And when they were bought out by the Lowe's brand, sure, things changed a little bit, and you know, it's still a pretty good product overall. And we'll talk about ownership of Craftsman and who they compare to and such here in just a few moments. But first, let's get this thing unboxed. All right, so this is exactly as it came to me from Amazon in the fulfillment center. I'm assuming just a little bit of shipping caused it to bulge out there, but that's part of what the engineers consider when they consider packaging for a product, right? So we'll go ahead and take care of those right here. See if there's any other tape anywhere else holding this thing together. There's some on the sides. It looks like it's going to be coming out the top side here as opposed to out like a little cereal box. So let's go ahead and open this side up since it's kind of popped open there. And we'll turn this around because it looks like that's how it's designed. And I hope everything is turning out on camera all right. And boom, there we go. Nothing else in the box here. And we'll just put this to the side like that. Alrighty, so looking here, of course, we have our instruction manual for those guys that like to keep instruction manuals. Myself, I'm a downloaded online so I don't take up too much space kind of guy. Alrighty, so we'll leave that guy here. We got our standard handle. Again, the screw handle style, right? Pretty much the same thing that you get with even the Asian ones. So here we go. And of course, the unit itself, which feels really, really good in my hand. And of course, an Allen key. And we'll figure out what the Allen key here is for in just a few moments, right? Looking down here, sure enough, we have the attachments down here and the, well, lack of better terms, the adapters down here. We'll pull those off in just a second. We got your locking mechanism up here to keep the item from spinning. See there, it locks up. And of course, what I really like is this design up here where it's a toolless, or they call it a toolless shield, okay? So effectively, I could just simply undo, or let's see here. Oh, there it goes. Squeeze this little pin that's on the side down here. I don't know if you can see it, but right where my thumb is at there. Squeeze that, and it allows me to move the guard super simple. So I don't have to come over, get a pair of screwdriver, or get a screwdriver, undo two screws, move the thing around, tighten it back up. It's instantaneous and easy. And of course, the paddle trigger, which I am definitely a fan of. All right, now as far as information on the side, I can see that this is a 7.5 amp motor. It is, let's see here, 4.5 inch angle grinder, and of course, it looks just like a Craftsman. Craftsman is owned by the Black & Decker company. Now, Black & Decker, just like General Motors, we're going to compare tools and cars here for just a second. General Motors owns multiple car brands. They own, well, GMC, they own Chevrolet, they own Cadillac, and they own the Hummer brand and others, right? And they use a lot of the same platforms across the brands, all right? Example, it's effectively the same platform on a Cadillac Escalade as it is on a Chevy Tahoe. It is effectively the same platform for any of their crossover SUVs, right, with similar models across the board, all right? So you have the small, mid, large size SUVs. They are all same platforms for, well, the different brands, Buick, Chevrolet, GMC, and Cadillac, okay? Now, when you buy a Cadillac, you are buying the higher end components. When you buy, say, a Chevrolet, maybe you're buying the lower end features on the vehicle itself. Maybe they tweak the ride, they tweak the suspension, the different features that are available for it, so on and so forth, okay? And you're not just paying for a brand, you're paying for what's inside, okay? Now, for this particular guy right here, all right, there is a similar model from DeWalt, because Black & Decker owns DeWalt as well. Now, DeWalt gets their notoriety for having everything made in the U.S. and assembled in the U.S. In fact, DeWalt will even make a lot of their own motors for that, okay? Great. What Craftsman does is they use those DeWalt designs and then they get their components from elsewhere to assemble the product itself. So it's assembled here in the US, but they might be sourcing the motor, which is designed by Stanley Black & Decker, right, which goes into the DeWalt line, but the DeWalt manufacturing is simply limited to just the DeWalt. So they get somebody else overseas to make the motor for it, okay, for the Craftsman here. It's off the same design, and boom, there you go. They put it in here, okay? So effectively, you're buying an American assembled product from parts across the seas, okay? Now, that's completely different than, say, this guy, which uses not only stuff that's, you know, built across the seas, but it is assembled across the seas and goes through importing and so on and so forth, all right? So that's what you get when you get with a lot of the Craftsman products, okay? So Craftsman, DeWalt, a lot of the same designs, but you know, a lot of the same components, just the components are made differently, okay? As far as why I went with a corded drill as opposed to a cordless drill, again, it comes to the form factor. As you can see, you know, if I'm using the grinder here, all right, and I got the little handle over here, this is not going to take up as much space in the vehicle as I'm working and gives me a whole lot more wiggle room than the battery powered one, because the battery powered ones, you know, go all the way, well, down to here and further. All right, they are big and massive and they take up a lot of space. Okay, so that's why I decided to go with the corded ones. And batteries, you know, batteries, if you ever had experienced batteries before, you know that the batteries kind of, you know, just give out over a set period of time, okay? So with everything up, well, in mind, and since this is a new tool, we gotta try to make sure everything is kosher. I have no doubt it's gonna work, but we just wanna give it the old testaroo here. So let's see here, we got a little piece that's kind of hanging off there. Well, let's tear off. Now let me get some scissors and cut that off real fast. Looks like a little tag that just got put on there. And so boom, there we go. That's just telling me the blade direction as if I didn't know. So I'm just gonna peel that off. I know which way it's spinning. And let's see here. I'm gonna press and hold the lock mechanism, see if this is finger tight or if it's, nope, it's just finger tight on there. And of course we have our adapters just like the other ones, okay? I wonder if that tool will work, if I had the previous tool, if it's the same spacing here. So let's take a look, see there. Definitely not the same spacing, so if you have one of your tools, these are proprietary. In other words, they go with whatever one they go with, right? So you definitely want to get a different tool. Now on this one, I do see that there is a little hole here that's hex keyed, and it looks like I could just turn it with the hex key here if something gets super uber tight. Kind of neat, all right? So there we go. Or I could just simply make one. So there's a key here and a key on the other side. And of course, if I had a tool, I could use it for those on the edge as well. Awesome. All righty. So we'll just leave the adapter as it is. Now this adapter is also kind of got its own, well, we'll use the term keyway in there. So it won't go in unless it's a certain way. So we'll do that. We'll just put an old pad on here. I got an old flap disc. This is a 40 grit flap disc already, and that goes on there quite nice. We'll give it the old turn. Now we'll do my favorite way, which is just simply locking and then twisting till it's pretty snug. Let me go ahead and set up what we're going to grind, and we'll give it a grinding test. Alrighty, let's go ahead and take our cap and put it in real fast. It goes in nice and easy. Of course, as you know, you can put it on this side or over here. Now, I have seen some models of grinders that have a little thingy up there. I guess that would be kind of cool to have, but I find it's more easy to control with the sides, but that's just a personal preference. Alrighty. Of course, we got the wire tie here. And let's see here, let me put this to an outlet that's ready for me. All right, so the grinding subject in question here, it was one of the pieces I was using to hold up the package tray on the back of the Barracuda when I was replacing the under seat pan and the wheel wells. So it's just got a little edging here that needs to be taken off that, you know, I could do it any time, but again, this gives me a good excuse to use the grinder for the first time. All right, can't forget our personal safety equipment. I like to use some sort of ear protection because they can get kind of noisy, especially with extended times of use, and that's awesome. Or I'll just stick in a pair of headphones and kind of listen to the headphones with my music and so on and so forth playing in the background. And of course, it's always good to wear some sort of safety glove. In this case, it's just mechanics glove. As you can see, I've already kind of worn out the edges here. But for again, this is just for demo purposes. And these things get beat up because I do use them a lot. All right, first thing I need to check for is make sure that I get some spinning action going on here. Oh, that's nice. A little torque there on the edge. It's quiet, so it's not super loud. All righty. As you can see, we are spinning, so let's go ahead. And I know the camera's up here. I've already damaged the lens a little bit, so if some sparks fly up toward it, it's perfectly acceptable. Definitely noticing that it is spinning much faster at 12,000 RPM as opposed to 10,000 RPM, so I can feel that difference, and I can see that difference correlated here in the use of the grinder itself. Oh, I like this guy. Oh, this is a good purchase right here. I'm a big fan. And you know what? Let's just do let me put it like this here. Just so I can finish working the edge, make sure we're good on the camera there. Yeah, it looks like we're good on the camera. Let me move that over a little bit. And get this edge here. Cool. So survey says that is definitely a good purchase and a good buy. Now, obviously I didn't put a heavy load on it, but I am absolutely happy with the way that thing loads. Now, as far as noise is concerned, it was not very loud, which I am really happy about, because let me tell you how loud this guy is. All right, so you heard how loud that guy was. Let me go ahead and unplug it. So here we go. I'm just gonna do a bare, so we can do an A and B comparison. All right, here is item number A. All right, so you hear how loud that is. And the less expensive one from my brother, we'll call this test number B. Let me get her plugged in. All right. I don't know if you're able to hear that on the microphone or not, but it's definitely a lot louder. So there you go. And that's it for today from Mike's Motorworx. Again, I'll leave the link for you below. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure you check out what's happening with Project Fast Fish next, because the next episode is going to feature a quick update on what's going on. Had something big happen for it this past week, and I'm ready to move forward so we could actually finish up the shell on the project. So we're going to talk more about that on the next episode. Thank you so much for watching.